The champagne glass shattered against the hardwood floor of my parents' living room, and everyone stopped talking. My father stood there holding the business card I'd just given him, his face drained of color. My mother snatched it from his trembling fingers, read it once, twice, then looked at me like I was a stranger. "Wait," she whispered. "You're the new owner of what?" But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up 6 months to the day I realized my entire family had been lying to me for 27 years. My name is Marlena Cortez, and this is the story of how I discovered that everything I thought I knew about my life was a carefully constructed fiction designed to keep me poor, grateful, and under control. It started at my grandmother's funeral. Abuela Rosa had raised me more than my parents ever did. While Dad built his struggling construction business and Mom worked her barely minimum wage job at the school district, Abuela was the one who packed my lunches, attended my school plays, taught me Spanish, and told me stories about our family's history in Texas. She died on a Tuesday. By Friday, my parents had already cleared out her house. I showed up that Saturday morning with flowers for her bedroom, the room where I'd spent countless nights as a child, listening to her stories. The front door was unlocked. I walked in expecting to find my parents sorting through photo albums, maybe crying over old memories. Instead, I found them in Abuela's bedroom with a real estate agent, discussing listing prices. "The market's hot right now," the agent was saying. "A property this size, this location? You're looking at least 700,000, maybe more." $700,000. My parents, who'd spent my entire life crying poverty, who'd made me take out student loans because they couldn't afford to help with college, who'd guilt-tripped me into sending them money from my teacher's salary to help with their mounting bills, were casually discussing a $700,000 property sale. "Oh, Marlena!" Mom spotted me in the doorway. Her surprise was genuine. Her guilt was not. "Honey, we were going to tell you." "Tell me what? That you're selling Abuela's house? The house she promised I could have?" Dad stepped forward, his contractor's hands spread in a placating gesture. "Your grandmother was confused at the end, sweetheart. She didn't understand property law. This house was in a family trust. It goes to us, not to you." "A family trust I've never heard of?" "Because you didn't need to know about it," Mom said, her voice taking on that sharp edge I knew too well. "You're young. You don't understand how these things work. We're handling the estate properly. If you want the full truth about what I found in that house, hit like so this story reaches more people who've been lied to by their families." The real estate agent looked uncomfortable. "I'll just wait outside." As she left, I walked to Abuela's dresser. The top drawer was open, nearly empty, but tucked in the back corner they'd missed something. A key. And attached to it, a safety deposit box number. I palmed that key so fast my parents didn't even see it happen. 27 years of being dismissed and underestimated had made me good at being invisible when I needed to be. "You're upset," Dad said, using his reasonable voice, the one he used when he was about to gaslight me. "We understand. You loved Abuela. We all did. But you have to think practically. This house is a financial burden. The property taxes alone." "How much?" I interrupted. "What? How much are the annual property taxes on a $700,000 property in this neighborhood?" Dad blinked. Mom's jaw tightened. Neither of them expected me to challenge the numbers. "That's not the point," Mom said. "The point is, we need to liquidate the asset to handle the estate's debts." "What debts?" "Abuela paid cash for everything. She told me that 100 times. She didn't believe in credit cards or loans. Well, she had medical bills. She had Medicare and supplemental insurance. I helped her set it up 3 years ago." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Finally, Dad tried a different approach. "Marlena, I don't like your tone. We're your parents. We don't owe you an explanation for how we handle family finances. If you can't be supportive during this difficult time, maybe you should leave." I should have left. The old Marlena would have left. Gone home to my tiny apartment, cried, maybe called my best friend to complain. The old Marlena would have convinced herself that her parents knew best, that she was being selfish for wanting something her grandmother had promised her. But the new Marlena, The one who was currently clutching a safety deposit box key in her pocket decided to dig deeper. "You're right," I said, my voice suddenly meek. "I'm sorry, this is hard for all of us. I'm just going to take a few things from Abuela's room, some personal items for memories. Is that okay?" Mom's face softened. She loved it when I submitted. "Of course, honey. Take whatever you want. Just nothing too large, obviously. We need to stage the house." I spent the next hour in Abuela's room, selecting memories. What I was actually doing was searching. The key had a safety deposit box number but no bank name. Abuela had been careful, paranoid even, about certain things. She wouldn't have made this easy to trace. In her closet, behind a row of dresses that still smelled like her perfume, I found a shoebox. Inside were bank statements, not from the local credit union where she'd kept her checking account. These were from First National Bank, downtown, and they showed monthly deposits of $6,000, going back 40 years. 40 years of $6,000 monthly deposits. My hands started shaking. I did the math quickly. Even without interest, that was nearly $3 million. My grandmother, who'd lived in a modest house and drove a 20-year-old car, who'd worn the same coat every winter and clipped coupons religiously, had been depositing $6,000 a month for 4 decades. Comment hidden. If you think you know where this money was coming from, and my parents had known, they'd definitely known. I photographed every statement with my phone, then carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When I emerged from Abuela's room with a jewelry box and a few framed photos, Mom hugged me. "I'm glad you understand, sweetie," she said. "This is hard on all of us, but we're family. We support each other through difficult times." I smiled and nodded and played the good daughter. Then I went home and started investigating. The safety deposit box number led me to First National Bank downtown. I showed up Monday morning with the key, Abuela's death certificate, and a copy of her will that I'd found in her nightstand, the one my parents apparently hadn't discovered yet. The bank manager, a woman named Patricia Chen, looked at the documents carefully. "Miss Cortez, I'm very sorry for your loss. Rosa was a valued client for many years." She paused. "But I'm afraid I can't grant you access to the safety deposit box. The account has specific instructions." My stomach dropped. "What instructions?" "The box can only be opened by Rosa Cortez, or, in the event of her death, by the executor of her estate as named in her official will filed with the county." "That's me," I said, sliding the will across her desk. Patricia read it carefully, then looked up. "This isn't the will we have on file." "What?" She pulled up something on her computer, then turned the screen towards me. There, in official county records, was a will dated 6 months before Abuela's death. The executor listed was my father, Marcus Cortez, but the will I'd found was dated 2 weeks before Abuela died, and it named me. "I think," I said slowly, "that my parents may have filed the wrong will with the county. This is the most recent version." Patricia's expression became very professional, very careful. "That's a serious allegation, Miss Cortez. If what you're saying is true, this is a legal matter that needs to be resolved through the courts. I can't give you access based on an unfiled will, even if it is more recent." I left the bank with my heart racing. My parents hadn't just lied to me, they'd committed fraud. They'd filed an old will, one that gave them control, and hidden the new one that Abuela had specifically created to give me control. Type yes if you want to see how I exposed every lie they told. I needed help. Real help. So I called the one person I knew who wouldn't judge me, who wouldn't try to convince me to keep the peace, or think about a family first. My Aunt Carmen, Dad's younger sister, who'd been estranged from the family for 15 years. Nobody talked about why Carmen left. It was one of those family secrets everyone pretended didn't exist. I found her number through social media and called her from my car, still parked outside the bank. She answered on the third ring. "Hello? Aunt Carmen? This is Marlena, Marcus's daughter." Long silence, then. "Are you safe?" Strange first question. "I'm safe. Why wouldn't I be?" "Because if you're calling me, it means you figured something out. And if you've figured something out, your parents are going to do whatever it takes to protect themselves. They always do. Carmen agreed to meet me at a coffee shop 40 minutes outside of town, somewhere my parents wouldn't randomly show up. I got there early, ordered 2 coffees, and waited. She arrived exactly on time, and I recognized her immediately despite the years. She had Dad's dark hair, but where his eyes were cold and calculating, hers were warm, sad. She slid into the booth across from me, studied my face for a long moment, then said, "You look like Rosa, same stubborn chin. And Carmen. Call me Carmen. I stopped being anyone's aunt 15 years ago when your father threatened to have me arrested if I ever tried to contact you." She sipped the coffee I'd bought her. "So, what did you find?" I told her everything. The house sale, the bank statements, the safety deposit box, the competing wills. Carmen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back and closed her eyes. "I was hoping Rosa had found a way to protect you. I'm glad she tried. I'm sorry she didn't finish it." "Finish what?" "Carmen, what's going on? Why was Abuela depositing $6,000 a month? Where was that money coming from?" Carmen opened her eyes. "Your grandmother owned 14 properties across Texas. Commercial properties, strip malls, office buildings, a small apartment complex. She inherited them from her father, who built them starting in the 1950s. The rent from those properties generated about $6,000 monthly in pure profit after all expenses and property management fees." I couldn't breathe. 14 properties. Worth, at current market value, approximately $38 million. The coffee shop tilted. I gripped the table edge. "Your father knew," Carmen continued. "We both grew up knowing. Rosa was very clear about her wishes. The properties were family legacy, meant to be passed down, never sold. She put them in an irrevocable trust years ago, with specific instructions about succession. Let me guess. Originally, my father was the successor trustee. Until 15 years ago, yes. Then Rosa changed the trust document. She made me the successor trustee and named you as the ultimate beneficiary. Everything was supposed to come to you when you turned 30, or when Rosa died, whichever came first." "Why 30? "Because Rosa wanted you to be old enough to protect yourself. She saw how your parents used you, manipulated you. She thought if you had time to build your own life first, your own identity, you'd be strong enough to handle the inheritance without them destroying you to get it." "Share this video so others understand what families hide from money." "The will at the bank," I said. "The old one that names Dad as executor. That's not the only thing they did, is it?" Carmen shook her head. "After Rosa changed the trust, your father went nuclear. He started a legal battle, claiming Rosa was senile, that I'd manipulated her. It got ugly. I had to hire lawyers, defend myself against accusations of elder abuse. Eventually, the judge ruled in Rosa's favor. The trust stood. But your father made sure I paid for it. He told you I stole from Rosa, didn't he? He said you tried to steal Abuela's house, that you disappeared when the police got involved." "I disappeared because he threatened to fabricate evidence and have me charged with fraud. I was a kindergarten teacher, Marlena. I couldn't risk a criminal record, so I left. I've been in Colorado ever since, waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For Rosa to die. For you to come looking. For your father to finally make the mistake that would let me help you." Carmen pulled out her phone and showed me document, the trust papers, legal correspondence, everything. She'd kept it all, waiting for this moment. "Rosa knew she was dying," Carmen said. "She called me 2 weeks before the end. Said she'd made a new will, separate from the trust, to ensure you got the house and all her personal possessions. She was supposed to file it with the county the next day, but she had a stroke that night. And my parents got there first. They got there first, found the new will, hid it, and filed the old one. The house wasn't in the trust, you see. Rosa kept it separate, wanted you to have it as a home base while you figured out the rest. Your parents needed that house sold to fund their lifestyle until they could figure out how to break the trust." I stared at the documents on Carmen's phone. $38 million, 14 properties, a legacy my grandmother had protected, that my father was systematically trying to steal. What lifestyle? I asked. They always acted like they were barely scraping by. Carmen laughed, bitter and sharp. Marlena, your father's construction company does $3 million in revenue annually. Your mother isn't a school secretary making minimum wage. She's the district's financial controller. She makes $90,000 a year. They own a vacation home in Colorado under an LLC. They take 2 international trips annually. They've been living well while making you feel guilty for having a studio apartment and a used Honda. Every interaction with my parents suddenly made sense. Every time they'd asked me for money. Every guilt trip about how hard they worked. Every comment about my selfish choices to pursue teaching instead of something more lucrative. It had all been manipulation. Not because they needed money. Because they needed me dependent, guilty, convinced I owed them something. Convinced I was the problem child who didn't appreciate their sacrifice. Why? My voice cracked. Why do all this to me? I'm their daughter. Because Rosa chose you. And your father can't stand not being chosen. He spent his whole childhood in his father's shadow. Then Rosa married a white man who walked out when your dad was 10, and suddenly she was the immigrant single mother everyone pitied. Your father built himself up from that, made his money, made his name. Then Rosa told him the family money wouldn't be his. It would skip him entirely and go to you. A granddaughter who wasn't even his whole child. I flinched. What? Carmen's face fell. Oh God, you didn't know. Didn't know what? She closed her eyes. Your father isn't your biological father. Your mother had an affair. She got pregnant. Your father found out when you were 2 years old, divorced your mother, demanded a paternity test. When it came back negative, he should have walked away. But Rosa convinced him to stay, paid him to stay, promised him that if he raised you, stayed in the marriage, and kept the secret, she'd make sure he was taken care of in the trust. Comment betrayed. If you can't believe what happened next. But then Rosa changed her mind, I whispered. Then Rosa changed her mind. And your father has spent the last 15 years resenting you for existing, resenting Rosa for choosing you over him, and planning how to take what he believes should be his. I sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours while Carmen explained everything. My entire identity, my entire understanding of family, dissolved with every word. My biological father was a man named David Brennan. He'd been my mother's co-worker, a brief affair during a rough patch in her marriage. When she got pregnant and realized the timing made it possible but unlikely that Dad, Marcus, was the father, she'd confessed everything. Rosa was furious, Carmen said. Not at your mother for the affair, but at Marcus for the way he reacted. He wanted your mother to terminate the pregnancy. When she refused, he threatened to leave, to make sure everyone knew what she'd done, to destroy her reputation. Rosa stepped in. She offered him a deal. Stay, raise you as his own, and she'd ensure financial security. But he never wanted me. He wanted Rosa's money. You were just the price of admission, and it worked for a while. But then you grew up. You became independent, smart, kind. Everything Marcus isn't. Rosa saw it. She started spending more time with you, less time pretending Marcus was capable of running the family legacy. That's when she changed the trust. I thought about every birthday where Dad was too busy to show up. Every school play where he sat in the back on his phone. Every achievement I'd shared that was met with criticism disguised as concern. It wasn't that I'd never been good enough. It was that he'd never wanted me to succeed at all. I need to see that safety deposit box, I said. Carmen smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. I thought you might say that. I'm the successor trustee, remember? Rosa made sure I had access to everything, including that box. We can go together. We went back to First National Bank. Patricia Chen looked surprised to see me return with Carmen, but when Carmen produced her own key and identification proving she was the successor trustee, everything changed. Miss Delgado, Patricia said to Carmen, using her married name. It's been a long time. I'm sorry about Rosa. Thank you, Patricia. My niece and I need to access box 847. Patricia led us to the vault. 2 keys turned simultaneously. The box slid out. Inside was a folder of documents. property deeds, trust papers, and a letter addressed to me in Abuela's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. My dearest Marlena, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found your way here despite whatever obstacles Marcus has created. Good. You're smart. Like I always knew you were. By now, Carmen has told you everything. I'm sorry I didn't tell you myself. I kept hoping Marcus would change, would see you for the gift you are instead of the reminder of his own inadequacy. I was wrong to hope. The properties are yours. All of them. The trust is ironclad. I made sure of it. Carmen will help you take control. Don't let Marcus bully you. Don't let guilt convince you to share what's rightfully yours. I built this for you. And you alone. Live well, mija. Live free. And remember, family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who protects your heart. Te amo siempre, Abuela Rosa. If this shocked you, comment justice below. I was crying. Carmen was crying. Patricia Chen, professional banker who'd probably seen everything, was crying. What do I do now? I asked. Carmen's expression hardened. Now we go to war. The legal battle started immediately. Carmen connected me with her lawyer, a shark named Margaret Wu who specialized in estate fraud and trust litigation. Margaret took one look at the competing wills, the hidden trust document, and the evidence of my parents' fraud, and smiled like a predator who'd just spotted wounded prey. This is the cleanest case I've seen in 20 years, she said. They're amateurs who thought they were clever. We're going to destroy them. But legal destruction takes time. Margaret filed emergency motions to freeze all of Abuela's assets, including the house sale. She filed complaints with the state bar against the lawyer who'd helped my parents file the fraudulent will. She requested a full forensic audit of every financial transaction my parents had made in the last 15 years. And while we waited for the legal system to grind forward, I went back to my teaching job and pretended everything was normal. My parents didn't know I knew. That was our advantage. They thought I'd been properly cowed by being kicked out of Abuela's house, that I'd gone back to my small life and accepted my small role in theirs. They called me weekly, checking in, playing the concerned parent. Mom invited me to dinner. Dad asked if I needed money for rent. I said yes to everything. I showed up for dinners. I accepted their small checks, deposited them in a separate account Margaret told me to maintain as evidence. I played the grateful daughter while building a case that would annihilate them. 3 months in, Margaret called. We have a court date. The judge is going to rule on the will dispute. Given the evidence, I'm 99% confident we'll win. But there's something else. What? The forensic audit came back. Your parents have been stealing from Rosa's properties for years. They got access to the property management account somehow, probably through forged documents, and they've been skimming rent payments. We're talking about $400,000 over 8 years. $400,000. Stolen. From properties that were meant to be mine. They're going to prison, I said. Possibly. If you want to press criminal charges, but Marlena, think carefully. They're still your parents. The publicity will be intense. Your life will never be private again. I thought about every lie, every manipulation, every time they'd made me feel small, worthless, like I was the problem, instead of their victim. I want them to lose everything, I said. Everything they stole, everything they built on lies. I want the world to know what they did. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then we'll make sure that happens. The court date was set for November 15th. My parents still didn't know I knew anything. The house sale was still frozen, and they were getting nervous. Dad called more frequently, his voice tight with stress. Mom started dropping hints about how expensive Abuela's funeral had been, how they were struggling with estate costs. I let them think I sympathized. I let them believe I was still the naive daughter who'd believe any story they told. Type yes if you want to see all targets hit at once. And then, on November 10th, exactly 5 days before our court date, my father decided to throw me a going-away party. I was moving to Denver, or so I'd told them. Taking a teaching position there, starting fresh. They'd been thrilled, probably relieved to have me out of state, away from lawyers and questions. They had no idea what was coming. The party was at their house, the one they owned free and clear, the one that was about to be seized to pay back what they'd stolen. They'd invited 20 people, family friends, neighbors, a few of my old high school teachers, everyone who'd watched me grow up, everyone who'd believed the story of Marcus and Linda Cortez, the hard-working parents who'd sacrificed everything for their daughter. I arrived with a box of business cards in my purse. Cards Margaret had made specifically for this moment. On them was printed, Marlena Cortez, Principal Beneficiary, Rosa Cortez Family Trust, Owner, 14 commercial properties across Texas, current value, $38 million. And underneath, in smaller print, formerly concealed by Marcus and Linda Cortez through estate fraud and embezzlement. Carmen was with me. So was Margaret, though she stayed in her car outside, ready to document everything. Margaret had wanted me to wait, to let the court ruling happen first, to do this cleanly and legally. But I was done being clean. I was done being legal. I wanted them to feel what I'd felt, standing in Abuela's house, realizing everyone I trusted had betrayed me. Dad made a speech. He stood in his living room, surrounded by people who admired him, and he told a story about his daughter. How I'd always been a dreamer, a little flighty, prone to running away from challenges. How he and Mom had tried to give me structure, stability, but I'd always resisted. She's running away from her problems again, he finished, gesturing at me with his beer. People laughed, knowing, sympathetic. Poor Marcus, with his difficult daughter. Off to Denver to start over, instead of dealing with real life here. The room was silent, waiting for my response, waiting for me to laugh it off, to play the self-deprecating daughter, to confirm their understanding of who I was. Instead, I walked over to him and handed him a business card. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "Read it," I said. Out loud. He read the first line. Marlena Cortez, Principal Beneficiary, Rosa Cortez Family Trust. His face went white. He tried to stop, but I pressed. "Keep reading, Dad. Let everyone hear." His voice shook. Owner, 14 commercial properties across Texas. Current value, $38 million. He stopped. "The last line, too," I said. He looked at me. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear in his eyes. Formerly concealed by Marcus and Linda Cortez through estate fraud and embezzlement. The silence was absolute. Mom grabbed the card from his hand, read it, looked at me with naked hatred. "Wait," someone said. One of the neighbors. "You're the new owner of what?" 14 commercial properties that my grandmother left to me in an irrevocable trust, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Properties my father has been stealing from for 8 years. Properties he tried to hide from me by filing a fraudulent will after Abuela died. We have a court date in 5 days, where a judge will officially rule that my father and mother committed estate fraud and embezzlement. The criminal charges will be filed shortly after. Mom moved toward me. Carmen stepped between us. "You ungrateful," Mom started. "I was never supposed to be grateful," I interrupted. "I was just supposed to be blind." The party collapsed. People left quickly, uncomfortably, phones out, already spreading the news. I watched years of carefully constructed reputation crumble in real time. Dad tried damage control. "This is a misunderstanding, a family dispute. Marlena is confused about some complex legal—" "I have the trust documents," I said. "I have Rosa's real will. I have bank records showing exactly how much you've stolen. And most importantly, I have 15 years of emails between you and the property management company where you explicitly instruct them to redirect funds to your personal account. Margaret Wu, my attorney, has copies of everything. So does the district attorney's office, as of this morning." That last part was a bluff. We hadn't filed criminal charges yet. But the look on Dad's face told me he believed it completely. "You're doing this publicly?" Mom hissed, vicious now that the pretense was shattered. "You're destroying your own family for money?" "You destroyed me for money," I said. "You just expected me to never notice." One of my old teachers, Mrs. Patterson, who'd known me since kindergarten, spoke up. "Marcus, is this true? Did you really steal from Rosa's estate?" "It's not stealing when it's family money. Dad said, desperate. Rosa would have wanted us to have access. Rosa specifically created a trust to prevent you from having access, I said. Because she knew exactly what you were, and she spent the last 15 years of her life protecting me from you. She poisoned you against us, Mom shouted. That bitter old woman convinced you we were the enemy when we've done everything for you. You did nothing for me, I said. My voice was calm, cold. You accepted money to stay in my life. You treated me like an obligation, a burden, a price you had to pay for access to wealth. Every birthday you missed, every school event you showed up to only for appearance's sake, every time you made me feel guilty for existing, it was all because you hated that I stood between you and what you thought was yours. We raised you. Dad's voice broke. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. You did the bare minimum required by law while collecting payments from Rosa for your trouble. And the second you thought you could steal from her without consequences, you did. You filed a fraudulent will. You looted her properties. You tried to sell her house out from under me before I could discover what you'd done. Don't pretend this is about parenting. This is about greed. Carmen put a hand on my shoulder. We should go. But I wasn't finished. I turned to address the few remaining guests, people who'd known my family for decades. In 5 days, a judge will confirm everything I've said. The evidence is overwhelming. My parents will lose the house, lose their business, lose everything they built on money they stole from my grandmother. They'll likely face criminal charges, and I won't stop any of it. Because family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who protects your heart. Comment deserved. If you believe, she deserved justice. Rosa's exact words from her letter. Mom flinched like I'd struck her. You'll regret this, Dad said. When you're alone, when you realize what you've done to us, you'll regret this. I smiled. The only thing I regret is not figuring it out sooner. The court ruled in my favor on all counts. The judge was scathing in his written opinion, calling my parents' actions a profound betrayal of trust and a calculated fraud against a vulnerable family member. He ordered full restitution, including interest. The house was seized. Dad's business was placed under lien. Mom was fired from the school district when the fraud became public. And I became the owner of 14 properties worth $38 million at age 27. The Denver move was real, just not for a teaching job. I relocated to manage the properties directly, to learn the business Rosa had built, to become worthy of her legacy. Carmen moved to Denver too, became my partner in managing the trust. We rebuilt what Rosa had created, added 3 more properties, grew the portfolio to $42 million in 2 years. My parents tried to reconcile. Dad sent letters. Mom called from borrowed phones. They claimed I'd been manipulated, that Carmen had poisoned me, that they'd made mistakes, but I was destroying the family over a misunderstanding. I never responded. Margaret handled all communication through legal channels. There was nothing left to say. The criminal charges came 6 months after the civil judgment. Embezzlement, fraud, theft from an estate. They took a plea deal. 3 years probation, full restitution, public admission of guilt. Prison was possible, but avoided in exchange for complete cooperation. I didn't go to their sentencing. I didn't need to. They'd already lost everything that mattered to them. David Brennan, my biological father, reached out when the story went public. He'd followed the case, recognized my name. We met for coffee. He was kind, gentle, nothing like Marcus. We didn't have a relationship exactly, but we had something. A connection based on honesty instead of lies. On the 2nd anniversary of Abuela's death, I stood in front of the house where she'd raised me, the house my parents had tried to sell. I'd bought it back at auction, restored it, turned it into a resource center for young adults dealing with family financial abuse. Carmen runs it. We named it Rosa's House. People ask if I'm angry, if I hate my parents. The truth is simpler and more complicated than hate. I feel nothing for them. They're strangers who share some DNA, who occupied space in my life for 27 years but never earned their place in my heart. Rosa earned that place. Carmen earned it. Margaret, who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, earned it. The people who pretended to be family while stealing from me, they earned exactly what they got. I'm 30 now. The properties are thriving. I've helped 12 other people navigate similar situations through Rosa's house. I've built a life that Rosa would be proud of, one based on truth and justice and protecting the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. And sometimes, late at night, I still have that business card, the one I handed my father at the party. I keep it framed in my office, a reminder of the moment I stopped being their victim and became my own person. 3 questions for you before you go. First, hit that like button if you believe Marlena deserved every cent of that inheritance. Second, comment, Rosa's legacy. If you think her grandmother was a genius for protecting her the way she did. Third, subscribe to this channel because these are the stories that need to be told. The ones about the people who refuse to stay silent when family becomes the enemy. The algorithm hides stories like this. Your subscription makes sure more people find them. More people understand they're not alone. More people realize that walking away from toxic family isn't betrayal, it's survival. What would you have done in Marlena's position? Tell me in the comments. And remember, blood doesn't make family. Loyalty does. Protection does. Love does. I'll see you in the next story.